Google just decided to raise tens of billions of dollars by selling its own stock at a discount, something the company hasn't done in over 20 years. Now, I've seen a lot of influencers put the press release that Google put out into AI to spit out different types of conclusion, but I believe the vast majority of them are missing the broader points. And I'm going to bring up 4 of them, including the one stock that benefits the most from this recent fundraising announcement by Google. Now, the first thing I'm going to start with is the fact that when Google reported their earnings a couple of months ago, they gave an early indication for 2027 CapEx. And CapEx is the money that Google and Meta and Microsoft and Amazon are spending on these data center, whether it's GPUs or the power infrastructure and the cooling technology that goes into them. They're spending a record amount in 2026 after spending a record amount in 2025. And by all estimates, next year, 2027, is going to be off the charts. In fact, Google already told you that was the case. And that was the earliest the company had ever done that. Usually they waited till about the 3rd or 4th quarter to do that. Instead, they did that right at the start of the year. So that was a sign of things to come. But this type of fundraise that Google is raising now, we are not talking now about 2027. We are now starting to talk about the AI build out, whether it's GPUs or anything that goes into the data center. We're not even talking about next year. We are now starting to talk in terms of multiple years out into the 2030s. That is what this type of fundraising tries to secure for Google. Now, the second thing that I haven't seen anybody talk about is just a couple of weeks from now, Apple is going to have their Worldwide Developer Conference. And the key announcement is anticipated to be finally a revamped version of Siri that is going to run on Google's Gemini AI platform. Now, there's no doubt behind the scenes that Google has already taken a look at this. In fact, the product is probably in full-blown development right now. Why would a company that pays billions of dollars of dividends to shareholders, continues to buy back billions of dollars of its stock, and is wildly profitable, need to sell its stock at a discount to shareholders to raise even more money? Well, maybe, potentially, they've already seen what Apple has cooking up in the lab, and they believe that it could potentially be the game-changing voice assistant that we've been waiting for from Apple for many, many years now. Potentially, Gemini and Siri together could create one of the greatest consumer AI software applications that we've ever seen. And if Google is so convinced of that, well, they'd probably be frantically trying to raise money so they can make sure Siri doesn't crash and burn like many of the frontier lab models do every time there's a surge in usage. So I believe Google's fundraising could be signaling that Apple is onto something with their Siri release, and we'll probably find out here really soon. Now, not all of the money that Google is raising in this fundraising round by issuing its own stock is going to go to data center. In fact, some of the money is actually going to be turned around and used for stock-based compensation purposes. But now we have to ask ourselves as investors is, where is the rest of this money going to go? And if we look at Google's technology stack, they certainly use chips from NVIDIA. They certainly use chips from Intel and AMD. Their Google Cloud offers them all. But the key piece of hardware that Google has relied on for many years to operate its data centers, to power its AI models, and even its search engine, is something that they call the Tensor Processing Unit. Now, Google has a team internally over in Mountain View that works very, very hard helping design these chips, but they need a partner. They can't do it all themselves. Not only that, they need massive connections and allocations to Taiwan Semiconductor to manufacture these things at scale. Now, for many, many years, almost a decade now, Google has relied on Broadcom to manufacture these TPUs for them. Shares of Broadcom have rallied into earnings to all-time highs, and investors are correctly assuming that a good chunk of this money is going to flow right into them. Other companies, and this is the key for Broadcom, is other companies other than Google are finding uses for these TPUs, including Anthropic, Meta, and others. So the key winner out of all of this is actually likely not to be Google, as they're diluting their own share base and selling their own stock at a discount, potentially signaling to investors that maybe the shares are overvalued. But I believe two companies could be poised to benefit. This could be telegraphing the fact that Apple has a Siri announcement just moments away, and Google has had an early look at that, and maybe through that early look, they're anticipating a surge in demand from that application. And number two, no matter what happens, the company is going to be investing heavily into TPUs. And that benefits Broadcom, a stock I have called out multiple times over the past several years, including posting videos here on the channel saying it's going to go to 600 and it's going to go to 700. Right now, at least with how things are going in the AI build out, those target prices might actually end up being a little conservative. Smart investors aren't plugging press releases into AI and coming up with scripts or tweets or those types of things. They're looking at moves like this and saying, well, if Google is going to go to these lengths to raise money, well, certainly Amazon is going to do the same, and so is Microsoft, and so is Meta, and so are the frontier labs, OpenAI and Anthropic, when they go public later this year. There is so much money, tens of billions of dollars. We're probably looking at $1 trillion in a single year of spending on this. You as an investor can capitalize on this. We've never seen this in our entire history of our lives. There's going to be people calling this a bubble. There's going to be people too scared to invest, and there's going to be people too confused to know what to do. But when tens of billions of dollars are being raised, when $1 trillion is being spent, the answer is actually quite easy. And in this case, with Google, the answer, and likely the best investment, will be Broadcom. By the time you see this, the company will probably report their earnings. I'll have a video for the paid subscribers. I'll see you later this week. Good luck with your investments.